Good afternoon. This is Gradye Parsons. I'm Stated Clerk of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church, USA. And this is, I believe, session 6 in a series of conversations about the future of the church. Where are we going as a church? We are in a part of the series where we're looking at some survey results from the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life that you can find on their website if you just Google Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life. Today we're going to look at why do people join church? Why do they join their particular church? We're always interested in people joining our churches, but what are the things that this survey shows that are the major markers that of the people that do join churches? Well, there's two surveys that tell us some things about this. Those who were previously unaffiliated for joining their current church or their current religion, part of it is the religious beliefs of that church, and they have come to some understanding in their own spiritual life, their spiritual quest, that what this particular church or this particular congregation has as its core values, core moral teachings, appeal to them, or they want to live up to them, and that's why they join the church. An even larger reason are the particular practices and people of that church. The leadership's part of that, but part of it's the social connectiveness. So part of the reason that people join churches are the way that church worships, or the way the leaders engage the people, the way the people engage them, is the very kind of the ethos and the nature of that church as participants. The third thing here is personal spirituality. In almost all these surveys we show there's this sort of general undertow of people seeking out congregations that really speak to their personal spiritual quests. Where do they feel in their heart that God is speaking to them or God is leading them? And that is one of the main indicators the unaffiliates say is why they join their particular church. The fourth one, and we know this is true from our own church's experience, is life cycles. People get married, they join their spouses' churches. Or people move and they join some church someplace else. People get remarried and they join someplace else. In fact, we find remarriage to be a major reason that people join a different church. So different things, personal things such as life changes, people's spiritual quests, their own sense of the moral values that are being taught at that church, and the very ethos of that church are some of the important values. Another survey that asks, the same survey that asks the question in a different way comes out for this. These are for people who have been unaffiliated and again have joined a current church. The number one reason they joined that current church was the religious services and style of worship. By far the number one thing. It's like 74% of the people said that was why they joined that church. So when we think about where we need to invest our energies and our resources and really our talents as we put together a church, we really need to think about that worship's time, whether it's early worship or late worship, whether it's contemporary worship or traditional worship or some blend in between. Whatever it is, it needs to be worship that is excellent, that lives up to what we as Reformed people understand the purpose of worship, but it needs to be worship that really is the best that we can offer to God and the best that we can do as a community of people. The second reason, and this also should appeal to us Reformed people, is people felt called by God to that personal church. Again, an internal spiritual quest. They felt like God was calling them to be part of that church. When my wife and I first moved to Louisville, Kentucky 10 years ago, and we were looking at different congregations, we went to different places, and all of them had great things to offer. But when we went to our current church, we both left that church and looked at each other and said, do we really need to look at anything else? It was the combination of the great people, the good preacher, but there was just a real sense we both had that we felt called to that particular church. So being called by God is the second biggest reason that people who are unaffiliated become affiliated in a church. The third reasons are tied, and they're attracted by a particular pastor, or they're asked to join that church by church members. Now, in the 80s and 90s, we used to think that people asking people was the number one reason anybody joined church. And what we're finding now, that's probably not as big a reason as it used to be, but it's still a very important reason. The particular minister, because so much of our churches are built around how the minister preaches, the minister style, but also the particular people in the church, how invitational they are, how open they are to new people, how well they're willing to assimilate new people into their church. So we need to be mindful of this. And then the fourth one is the perennial favorite, married someone in that church. So marriage is still an important evangelism tool. So when we start thinking about our church and how we make our church reach out to new people, we need to think about our worship, what kind of message it communicates about our values, about what we believe about God. We need to also think about people's personal spiritual quest, how we get in touch with that, And we also need to think about the minister and the people of the church, how they too are an important part of asking people to be part of that community of faith. Now, next week, session 7 of this series, we will have a brief time with Brian McLaren, noted author and futurist and lecturer around the church about the future of the church. And I hope you'll come back to be part of that conversation as we continue to talk together about where is God calling the church to be. Thank you.